I was working on something that was special interest related, and I did a 1-2 punch at the end there. I felt a lot better. I made a ChatGPT, an analytical tool to recreate two feminists that would then analyze the subjects brought up in the conversation and the way they were brought up to prove my point that that's not how their feminism works, or mine, or any of it. But yeah, it made me feel a lot better, and now I'm fine.
For now.
For now. Yeah, you know. So I put some posts in the Discord about like possible subject matter.
Yes. In fact, I'll read out these ones that I had questions about so that you could then answer those questions. Let me.
Yeah.
Right, because you've brought up the possible topic of low fidelity imagining other people's potential response to our actions versus what non-autistics can do, where they play it out like a movie. And we're like, I know the fact that this person likes X thing. I think they will like this Y thing I got for them because it's similar to that X thing. I cannot wait to see what happens. I hope they'll be happy. And then you also mentioned the dual empathy problem, but I'm just like, wait, what? So like other people do something other than that thing that you say we do?
Yes, they do. They play out a whole movie and they rehearse all of their lines and the other person's lines.
That. So like, okay, so there's the part where the movie where it's like visual. I'm putting that aside. That's just aphasia. But just the fact that they have all these like details is astounding to me, or any amount of details, or even feel secure in the fact that the person will respond in a certain way.
Right. To me it seems like that's impossible, and even just like, okay, let me preface this. Even when I was like in middle school and you start like having crushes on people, and I was like, I have a crush on that person, I will actively not imagine them because I know I have no idea what they would say or do, and that's not cool for me to project onto them something that clearly is not what they would say or do. So I actively avoided that, including people that I liked in my imagination, because I knew that everything that I imagined would simply be my imagination and nothing more, and not related to like the real world at all. So like even when I have like a hint about like I don't actually think I know what's going to happen. In fact, it's exciting because I don't know what's going to happen. Like I'm like I think like it'll be positive because all of these features are true. Like Kyle had decided to, let's, actually get married means probably will like that I got him presents. Like I'm not taking this out of context of entirely, but I'm not then playing his reactions in my mind because that would be completely devoid from reality. But that apparently is not how other people do it. And if I ever cut out in any weird way, I'm still dealing with some weird internet stuff, so I'm just gonna mention that. So sometimes I won't know if maybe I cut out.
We will mention it if we hear you cutting out,
Thank
and
you.
you haven't cut out so far.
Sweet. Okay. So that's a good topic, I guess. We can grab that one maybe, or we can even go through it, any of them.
Where would we continue with that topic, I guess?
I guess.
We probably need to like verify if there's any studies or anything on it. When we came across it last night.
Kyle, you are super quiet.
Oh, sorry about that. Is that better?
Not significantly. Is anyone else having that issue?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. I think. I don't know. I have turned my volume up so I could hear it better.
Yeah, I had to turn my volume up the instant Kyle started trying to talk, basically.
Okay. Is that any different or?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anyways, I would think that we would probably need to verify that the premises like were situated correctly, because the way it came up last night was we were
Mhm.
just just talking about stuff, and then I mentioned like I think we were talking about like what it came from was like autistic people having a difficult time understanding like the intent of other people, or seeing lies, or like recontextualizing something, because this is based on somebody in another Discord server
Mhm.
was talking from a position of authority about feminism, and basically was just pretty much just getting it all wrong and just kind of throwing things out there that were incoherent. Um, and kind of how it seems like when especially so an autistic person, when somebody especially starts talking about that autistic person's like special interest and is just getting it wrong, it seems like the autistic person is going to want to try to correct the information, right? Um,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes it seems to me that an autistic person might have a difficult time kind of immediately being like, oh, well, this person's talking about the thing I like, but they're just using it because of where it's situated in the culture, in order for that person to then um, either appear a certain way, or for some other view they have being substantiated and verified by the simple quote existence of the autistic person's special interest. And the autistic person, well, that's not how that works. That's not what it's for. That's not how it works. Oh, all this is wrong. All this is wrong. All this is wrong. And maybe not really realizing like, well, you're talking about your special interest. They're saying they're talking about their special interest, or excuse me, the autistic person is talking
Topic.
about the autistic person's special interest. The other person is saying, or pretend, or the other person is saying that they're talking about the autistic person's special interest. But I think a lot of times what's really going on is that other person is just using that as kind of like a banner or a flag, like it's not really substantial. And so that kind of led into the idea of like, it's kind of like more of a question of like, well, autistic people have a difficult time. Do they have a difficult time kind of understanding like you really are having two different conversations, even though you're both talking to each other, because you're talking about the thing, they're assuming the thing and talking about something completely different
And by
while
talking about the
pretending like
thing,
they're talking about the thing.
by pretending, by appearing to talk about the thing, they accomplish some hierarchical, like, well, global configurational social goal is what I would say, because that does like the hierarchy proximity. Like, I'm close to good people, or I'm close to smart people. Like, there's a place where smart people are, and I'm close to them because I'm talking about the thing that I think smart people talk about, and they're like, okay, well, talk about it then. And then they're like, well, I don't read anything. I'm like, and but
Oh,
now
I know the thing,
I'm
but I
I
don't study the thing.
right, but now I'm maintaining their self-image, which I definitely am the wrong person to do because I can't see that shit.
mhm. So like, so if there's a situation like that, Kyle, right? Like I won't become aware that that was a
Yeah.
situation until it has been pointed out to me by someone else. And then we have talked about the fact that this is probably the situation for several hours. And even then, I will not be certain that that is what was happening.
Well, I have to. What I ended up doing, what you saw me doing, and helped me to do, was make it so that it is impossible that the person has the features that they claim that they have. It's impossible. I have painted that there's no interpretation. There isn't like, oh, they didn't understand it. They just lied about the features that they have because of social whatever, for some reason, because of
Okay.
reasons.
And it might not even be like there's some mastermind doing it on purpose. It could be they genuinely are confused. It could be that they genuinely
Yeah.
have an intellectual impairment. It could be genuinely that they were tired that day. It could be
Oh,
for a
well,
lot of reasons.
beyond that, just like basic psychology shows us that like like all kinds of the time people are being motivated by things they have no idea that they're being motivated by. Like
Uh-huh.
right, people do not generally have high levels of self-awareness on their motivations from moment to moment. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd be willing to agree to that. Um,
And then if my
and
motivation in sometimes is just really about the thing, it's really difficult
Mhm.
when their motivation isn't.
so so kind of quickly to continue down that kind of like storyboard, like how we got to
Yes,
the initial question they're asking in the
please.
post. So that's where it starts, talking about the person talking about feminism and then basically just getting it wrong. And then kind of this question I have of like, autistic people have a hard time. It seems like autistic people have a hard time understanding when someone is saying and doing A, but what they're really saying and doing is really B, right? And like you said, unless it's like directly pointed out, I think that it's a skill that can be difficult for anyone, anyways. It's not like
Mhm.
every non-autistic person is going to get it right 100% of the time. That's not the claim either.
Mhm.
I just think that maybe it's a bit precluded for the autistic person to do it in that way. Maybe they could do it in a different way. But then from there, the next question I had was like, oh, what's the theory of mind thing? We looked that up. It doesn't seem to be the most applicable. Then talking about the double empathy thing, and then I asked a question like, okay, so I think like 2 months ago at this point, Jane and I were speaking with Socrates TV. Do you remember Socrates
Yep.
TV?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe Jane asked the question, um, when you're so when to Socrates and I, when we're thinking about a conversation or whatever, do we imagine arguing with the person in our head and then therefore filling in what they would say and what we would say in return to that, and then what they would say and what we would say in return to that? And so Jane said no, and then both of us are like, naturally, yeah, although that's something that either one of us would try not to do, but it seems that it just kind of naturally happens. And so I was thinking about that last night, and then I was just thinking, because I come from a very non-autistic world, but it's
Mhm.
also a lot of my coworkers are also like, they're different in their own way. They're just specifically not autistic for sure. But some people have some overlaps with certain things, whatever. But they're it's a non-autistic world, and just hearing how they frame things or how they talk about when they're going to talk to somebody, there's a lot of language of like, and then he's going to say this, or
Well,
yeah, I'm gonna have to go tell so and so, and then they're going to say this about it,
okay,
and
that
then
yeah,
making
that just
decisions based on
that just immediately strikes me as like how would like I'm just like aghast, right? Like, and then I don't know, I can't predict even one level in of how somebody's gonna react, or and like my brain certainly wouldn't just automatically try to predict in that manner that you're describing.
that. So I
Um,
think and that's why I said when you asked just a moment ago, I'm trying not
mhm,
to go over the place, but to contextualize things
mhm,
using the GC abilities. Anyway, when you say like where do we go next from this, I'm like, well, I think we would have to kind of substantiate the initial claim that non-autistic people kind of play these kind of like movies or these. I'm going to do this, they're going to do this, then I'm going to have to do this, and then they're probably going to do this, and then that means I have to do this or this, and then they're going to either do this or this as kind of like a norm. Um,
mhm,
so I would have to say that I haven't done this in a clinical setting, and also my experimental groups, as I've been kind of testing this out over the years, has predominantly been male. Um, that's who I work with. That's who I've spent the most time with in friend groups. Um, I have seen that behavior exhibited in females as well. So I don't know how much of it is a social conditioning. Like I have to ask myself, like,
mhm,
males are definitely taught. Like if you don't become a leader, there's something wrong with you. Or, if you don't know how to look ahead and anticipate and guide other people, like you're not really a full man because it's the man's job. So I don't know how much of it comes from that. I don't know how much of it is informed by our culture as a better term, Westerners. I don't like the term, but for now, like kind of like culturally uh, descendant of Europe and other kind of influences outside of Europe, etc. So I don't know how much of that is also have to keep in mind too that we're English speakers. My experimental groups have been pretty much English, like only English speakers. Maybe a couple of them speak Spanish or something, but for the most part, like they speak English day to day, so they're fundamentally English speakers. Because I know English is I guess linguistically English is considered a bit um, like direct and kind of like authoritative, if you will, is what I've kind of heard. I'd have to substantiate
Yeah.
that. So
When
kind of a very big question. So I don't
when
know
we
if
say,
it's like
sorry, when we say Westerners, we're basically sort of pointing to the cultures that are predominantly carrying along the line of the Roman Empire, like culturally, right? Um,
that, but I think we'd have to also keep in mind too, though, that even outside of the but it's Roman Empire for sure. I think we
yeah,
also have to keep in mind the cultures that were there before the Roman empires and how those assimilated
yeah, of
into
course.
the new
Sorry.
cultures that formed.
Yeah, when I say the
Um,
Roman Empire, like I mean that's just sort of like the point I could point at most central, and like obviously what the Roman Empire is all dependent upon the antecedents of what they are coming from and built from and everything. Um,
yeah, exactly,
sorry, and
exactly.
I've been getting you off your track, which you have because you're not
Well,
autistic. So
no,
please continue your track.
I don't. I don't think that was off. I don't think that was off track because that's indeed another feature to
Mhm,
consider when we're asking this question. Because the question is, okay, so I'm fairly confident to say that the people that I've interacted with, and if I were to hear someone like a stranger, like watch a video clip of it, I believe I can point it out when I see it, like what I'm talking about. So I'm comfortable to say that it's something worth investigating. I just don't know if it's like an essential trait that a human would do. I don't know how much of it's influenced by the gendered socialization. I don't know how much of it's due to the cultured uh, socialization, but I think nonetheless, I think it's still something worth interesting to look at because it sounds like I don't know, like Shadow. Do you do any of these behaviors that we're discussing? Because it sounds like support. You said, or Lilith, you said for sure not, right?
right.
Yeah, and then
Um,
Jane said not.
I think that I don't know, in terms of thinking of what people will say, I can't actively guess it at all.
Right,
Like,
right,
do I
right,
ever like panic about someone's gonna respond?
right,
Absolutely.
Yes,
But
all the
right.
time. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Like,
And
can
probably
I
because
actively
you don't.
predict it? No,
Right. And I
not
think
at all.
maybe that's where the I think that's maybe where that kind of
Well,
go ahead,
no,
Jane.
this is good too because then it talks about why we might avoid things. Because
Mhm.
I know I'm always going to be like some element of this I'm not going to see coming. I will not even. I'm not going to see any of it coming. Like there's some things where it's like I have a general sense of like what suite of behaviors
Yes.
a person has. So it would be
So
weird if it exited that suite of behaviors that I expect this person to have. But outside of that, I'm always setting myself
right,
up to be surprised.
and I wanted to say like I do what I think of as like pre-scripting conversations I know are going to happen, but what it is like I focus on what I am going to say, and I have
Yeah.
access to my understanding of the general kinds of ways humans react to things, right? But not any specific examples. I just, in the like preconscious sort of part of the mind, like I know things about how people have. And so I actually think this causes an issue that wouldn't be as bad if I could do that thing you're talking about, be, where I like overgeneralize and they end up like worrying about certain reactions
Yes.
from people who I have the factual information to know wouldn't react that way if
Mm.
I was looking at specific ways they might react. But instead, I'm working off this very unspecific general understanding I have of ways people can or have reacted in similar situations.
And then you
So
look at the
Oh,
worst case
you
scenario.
guys go.
maybe I can give an
Go ahead.
example. Feel free to let me know if it's getting too complex because that would be interesting to see where this example gets too complex. So I'm going to do my best to slightly translate it for an autistic mind, but I'm still trying to keep the main structure of the what I'm considering the non-autistic way of thinking in this. You can kind of see what I'm getting at. Okay, so imagine us four are on a job site, a construction job site. It's construction, right? You have your hard hat, you have your boots, you have your safety vest, your glasses, your gloves. Um, it's dusty, it's dirty. There's a lot of people moving around, a lot of loud sounds, a lot of tools going off. There's stuff in the way. There's trash on the floor. It's kind of crazy, right? Um, let's say that all 4 of us, we're doing the same job. You guys are helping me install 6 TVs in this boardroom, right? Like a big room that's for the like the CEO to have his meetings and stuff, right? Or her, but probably he. I don't think I've met a single female CEO this whole time after 10 years. So we're in there. There's a big expensive table. You just heard the furniture guys say like, "Oh, can you not put anything on the table because the table's worth $10,000." You'd be surprised how many tables are worth $10,000 in the world. Um, so I cover it up with packing blankets. They're like blankets. They're like for moving stuff. And we're going to install this TV, and we're going to put the mount on the wall. And I noticed that there's supposed to be this metal box that's inside the wall that goes behind the TV that we're going to put the devices that connect to the TV so that they can use their teleconferencing system. And I'm looking at it and I go, oh, this box is not the right size. It's too small, right? So I have to make a decision. Do I ask the electrician? Do I look at my drawings? Do I ask the general contractor who kind of oversees the whole project and has to make sure that everything's going together well? I'm making a decision. I know that the electrical contractor, because I saw the way that he was talking to the flooring guy earlier today, he's either in a bad mood because I only saw him today. So I'm not going to ask him. I'm going to go ask his second guy, the guy who's like underneath him, who's also kind of in charge, because he seems like he's a little bit more like understanding and calm. Or let's say we've been there for 2 months already. I have a good rapport with the electrical contractor, even though he's usually always mean to people. He seems to be understanding to us. So I'll go and talk to him first. Or, he's on the other side of the building. I don't know where he is. I don't have his phone number. I don't want to call him because it's weird to call people. So I know where the general contractor usually is. So I'm going to go talk to him. But the way I'm about to say it, I'm not going to say it in a way that sounds like I'm blaming the electrician. And I know the general contractor is stressed because the project is 3 weeks behind schedule, and he's all upset that we're still working, even though that's not our fault. And he's like pushing me to work faster, even though I can't. I still have to go tell him. So I'm going to say it this way. I'm going to be like, oh, hey, we're working really hard. We're getting a lot of stuff done. But we hit a stopping point. We're going to do other work around it, but I need the electrical box to be taken out and redone. And I know that that's a lot of work. I know that that's going to cost either the electrician's company or the general contractor's company, whoever made the mistake, upwards of like $2,000 in time to pay somebody to come and fix it. And so I have to like think of how I'm going to navigate that, and I kind of have to bring him like a tribute of like, oh, look at all this other stuff I got done though, right? So you see how quickly it's getting complicated.
It got complicated after 5 seconds for me. I have no idea.
I'm so lost, right? And like, Kyle, can you estimate how long you were talking for just now in this scenario you were laying out? Just quickly estimate for me. Was it
in the real world?
Real world, yeah.
Were you just talking for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or what?
Probably like 5.
Okay, so so I think about like 30 seconds in, it started to be a little much for me. And after a minute, I was like, this is so much for me to keep track of. I'm trying to focus entirely on it. And then after about 2 minutes, I stopped being able, right? Like I just became wholly lost.
I just started, I started thinking about how my brain doesn't use this kind of information. And then I started thinking about like, man, that must be different. And then that was always thinking.
So the main takeaway is I'm not even close to being done, right? And I'm not going to continue.
Please don't.
There's a taste, is all I'm saying. There's a taste, right? And basically your answers are too much. That's all I need, right? Because that's what I'm assuming was going to happen. And so the final statement I'll make on
it's unimaginable.
The final statement, that's fine. The final statement I'll make on it, though, the main point. It's not to. The main point is this. That happens for me and other people I know in 1, 2, done.
Oh, right. So this, This is all just like you're expressing configurational information that your mind processes when considering the problem.
Exactly. As soon
But
as
it's
I
not
see that thing
expressive.
as soon as I think
Right.
as soon as I as soon as I as soon as I think as soon as I see that thing as small, I've gone through all those conversations, not word for word, but the general estimations of what these people are going to
And
do.
this is why our eye scanning pattern is different, and why we find Waldo in 2 seconds but can't do all kinds of other visual scanning tasks. We can't just speak. I think literally, and if people understood it this way, we'd have a way easier time talking about the disability. But literally, like, you look at physical space, and your brain is doing something completely different in the same way that like color blindness or something like this. Like, we need to explain this to people that like it's congenitally formed, so there's no reference at all for what you're talking about. So when you started telling me about that, it was like, how do I explain this? It was like somebody telling me about the 7th dimension. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and it to be
And I just want to say what
fair,
it felt like to me, right? It felt like you were just saying out loud a math problem where you just kept defining more and more variables or numbers or whatever that I'm now going to have to keep track of, and kept going and kept going and kept going. And it's just like, well, no, I cannot
Right.
hold that much information
So
in what's the word for it, like without
Working
context,
memory,
right?
and yeah.
so to be fair,
Mhm.
to be fair, that might have also sounded like a lot to somebody who's not in construction, but I think they would probably have a much easier time following along and being able to like
Well,
make analogous things to their own
No,
experience.
so
Well, that's just like how it is in the office
no,
or something.
so none of it is the specifics, right? Like I could follow any of those specific sentences, and it just became too much to keep going, right? Like, and also like the place where I started checking out or whatever is the place where I'm like, this, okay, I know what the problem is now, right? This box is the wrong size, and then based on my knowledge of working there, I would know whoever the best person is to tell about that fact,
right.
right?
Which changes.
Well, and I'm trying to.
It's just no. I would know there is one person who I am supposed to tell about things when things aren't going correctly, and then I would tell whoever that is.
And
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. And,
Well-
and in a situation like that, if you guys saw it, you would tell me because I'm your superior, right? But then I have to figure out: do I tell the electrician? Do I tell the GC? Do I
So-
tell my superior? Like I have 5 people I gotta do a matrix on to decide who I'm gonna tell.
I want to add something to this too, because I'm like, okay, what's a field that I know that has a lot of complex interactions? Ballet. I started too late to really enjoy the full benefit of like the compensation, because there are people that are autistic that are professional ballet dancers. I just want to like put that out there. Like, there's some overlap there. But what I would do, and what I think all of them are doing, you practice by yourself over and over and over and over and over again, and you fix one detail at a time. And then you kind of like test your latest thing, and you do that step by step by step by step, space by space by space, so that when you're interacting with the other people, you're less of a problem, but you're still a problem. But I'm not thinking about the other people in the room. I'm only thinking about my own body and controlling it along these like very rehearsed physical landmarks. So you can do that with like the physical body, because I think that's separate. Like, you can train motor neurons more successfully than you can ever train these reactive visual spatial behaviors, which of course you're going to use motor neurons for too, but it's different. So I just wanted to note that. And like, I wanted to go way back, and I'm sure this will actually end up connecting because we're talking about one phenomenon. So when I'm interacting with somebody and they're reacting in ways that I don't understand, they also will ascribe meaning, like as if I'm having that map that, or that behavior that Kyle was talking about in his brain, as if I'm doing that. And then they would be like, well, you must be doing this behavior because you want X. Right. And then my response every time is like, wait, I can just tell you what I want? Because that's not what I want. Can I just tell you what I want? Because like I do want something. Can we is like we get to do that now? Like, so my response is to be like, well, no, that's not what I want. If you'll listen to what I want, I will tell you directly what I want. Even the ugly parts, I don't care. Why do I fucking care? I have nothing to prove because the hierarchy shit means nothing to me. I'm like, well, this is what I want, and here's some of the complicated reasons I want it, and here's some of the, reasons that I'm proud of for wanting it. Like, I would literally have that conversation.
And just like a quick analogy is like if a colorblind person was trying to communicate something by writing it out to somebody, and the other person is like, oh my gosh, you have been kidnapped because I could see that you're highlighting certain words in yellow that are standing out as you're communicating to me. So the words you're saying cannot matter. What actually matters is the colors that you physically cannot see. Because if you are a person who did see that, then that would be what you were communicating, right? You had highlighted, please help me, right? Like that would be obvious if you were capable of doing that, but you're not.
Right, exactly. And somehow the highlighter's like attached to my pen in a weird way where it's like, I don't know how I'm communicating that to people. Is there past experiences that they're projecting like neurotypical behaviors and trying to match me with it, and it makes people uncomfortable because it's not working very well. So I'm being perceived as like a liar, or like there's other issues because they're trying to do the theory. This got into theory of mind, and I don't love that term, but they're trying to say like, I anticipate you doing something that my brain does and that other brains have done, because most people they ever meet will do that, and they themselves do, and this must be your motives. And so not only do I have no insight about their motives, they don't have insight about my motives, and they're much more likely to be guarded about disclosing motives because they have global configurational, which on some level operates on concealing your motives. And I'm like, that's the information I can't see. I'm not going to, a congenitally blind person wouldn't be like, it would be really great if you put like ear mufflers on me to conceal that, right? Because there's some advantage for people who are visual to sometimes take the sound out for something to help them focus on other things, or for whatever reason, or to be deceptive. Who knows? But like that.
I think
yeah.
I think we also have to always stress, maybe until we automatically do it, and maybe we already do, is what a lot of these behaviors, etc., that we're describing, we have to keep in mind that they're cultural, they're dependent on the culture of the person, because I don't know, is this type of phenomena happen the same exact way in Japan? Like, I don't know. Does it happen the same exact way?
It has to happen in some way because I think it's based on ability. Like, I think eyesight at a certain point, it's not going to be universally interpreted, but it's universally expressed. Now, how that expression and interpretation is crafted by life experiences and culture, and that will change it 100%. But I do think there's probably something that's a little more universal than, or more resiliently universal, because this does seem to be a problem everywhere for autistic people. Like, it seems like that's why we're like, oh, we're from a different planet or something. Doesn't seem like there's a culture that's like, this is fine, because I do think like the disability is so profound that enculturation cannot explain it.
I know. I never actually verified this one, so I think we need to verify it. But there's that idea that I believe it's the Maori have a word for autistic people. I don't know if it's pre-colonial or not. If it's pre-colonial, that's really interesting, but it basically translates to like in his or her own time and place, or own time and space, like almost like they're in their own world, but it's like, so how did they treat people like that? I don't know, but I know that I gotta be careful too, because I don't study indigenous stuff nearly as much as I actually do want to. But I know that there's kind of this concept too where,
okay, well this person's like this,
so they can do this, and it's fine.
This
this person, they're good at this, they're not good at this, so they can contribute this way. So it seems a lot more amenable than like, well, no, all of us have to contribute in this exact same way.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, like you're saying, the communal places that are still left in the world and have been resilient are probably partly resilient because they do make space for people to be different.
Well, not that that's wrong. I guess more for what I was coming from, though, is like something to consider of how the autistic person is interacted with. Like, I think there's a lot of comparison that can be done across time, culture, language, class, etc. Obviously, your sex is clearly a huge difference as well. And then
sorry to interrupt, but I want to close up the tangent that opened up about Maori. The Maori word for autism was coined by somebody who published an article about it in 2017. And it's right. So it's not like an old term. It is a very recent term. No, I don't think so. Like he made a word based off of the phrase that he personally uses to talk about autism in their own time and space, and they like turned that into a neologism, but it was not around before that moment.
I wonder if there's anything in that culture that would allow that to be more likely to occur. Like, so even though it was made recently by some random dude in an article, that's why I kind of preface it with like, I'm not sure. So thank you for like verifying it because I'm sleeping right now. So I don't know how they treated autistic people basically before, you know what I mean? Before any stressors of like, not that they didn't have their own stressors, but
That somebody contemporary came up with the wrong place, wrong time, wrong stuff thing, to be honest, because like I think that's right. Yeah.
Before I to kind of go back to the main question of like the movie image thing, the guessing, the estimation. If I say this person's gonna say this, so then I'm gonna say this, and then they're either gonna say that, right? The conversation tree, right? Kind of wanted to situate it in that I don't think that it can, as I'm describing it, be considered universal to humans in general. Although I think maybe there's some characteristics of it that might be, just how a given culture might interact with the, I guess you could say like the biologically essential nature of it, right? Like an autistic brain is just different from birth than.
Well, we have a difference in a universally evolved trait. That's a good way to talk about it, and it's not ableist. It's just like acknowledging material reality.
Right. So I just wanted to kind of situate that anything I'm saying, like it's pretty narrow in its scope, if that makes any sense. That's why I was, to response to the initial question, like where do we go on from the conversation? I wanted to kind of say, well, if you wanted to continue with the premise, we'd have to establish that the premise is indeed correct or change it to its more accurate description. I don't know. There could be another time and a place where they're like, we talking about, we love autistic people. Most of us aren't, but we just don't make them like try to know where everything's going. We just like, they just make baskets or something. I don't know. They're just really good at making fletching for arrows. I don't know.
So, like, I understand why you're saying, like, oh, can be different in a different time and place. But at the same time, like, we're trying to build models based in this time and place. So I don't know how useful it is to, like, do the work of centering the fact that it can be different elsewhere.
Yeah. So I think as a working model, I think we can, if everyone's okay with that. I wanted to give people the option to say like, no, I don't even want to do it because we don't know if it's real or not. But if I'm comfortable that it's happening in our time and place, so I think it's worth investigating. If we want to build another part of the.
So the reason I like this is because I taught this. Okay, this evolved in a couple directions when we were talking about it yesterday. But like, if I'm in the way and having a hard time, I need to ask people, what the fuck are you doing? And it's not because I'm stupid, it's because I can't see. And I'm not doing something that's unhelpful to it because I'm trying to be unhelpful or I'm stupid. I can't see. So then I don't want people to have to like puppet me around the room. I want you to be able to do what you're doing, but you have to be able to like know that I need questions answered in order for me to even begin to be like able to share the space and even contribute insofar as much as that I can. Well, again, I kind of need to be able to stay out of people's way, not entirely, not in some like shame way, but like practically speaking, because I have a disability, so I can't see this stuff. So I need to ask some questions about it. And that, oh, this was the other part, that I've been trying to ask these questions, and I ask them of myself my whole life. So having some confidence that some of the things that I'm asking, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense why I need that information, there's a reason why I'm asking for it, because I've been navigating this way my whole life. And not to give me information outside of that too much. So that's where it's like this gets interpreted as like autistic people asking for literalism or very specific direct instructions, but then why isn't it working? Because you're not, I think what's happening potentially is the allistic person is not actually providing the information and is also doing this other kind of information. And then this comes into another conversation we're having, that like there's something I think maybe very early on in the statement that the allistic person makes where they don't answer the question we need, but they think that they have, because they interpret our question according to their allistic reasoning. So then they say something else that is still not the information I was asking for, which is I was asking for the information I can see, but you can't unbake your cake. So you don't realize that the information exists in isolation outside of the other stuff. So they still end up talking about the other stuff in some way. And then we have to keep asking questions, and then now we're annoying.
Or if I may,
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, so that analogy, you can unbake your cake or whatever. So that's also something I notice. And like I don't interact with very many people outside of like this internet community. So Kyle, you're like the only holistic person I interact with, like semi-commonly. So it's sorry, it's like based on you, right? But like I notice that sometimes I'm trying to ask like what is the third ingredient in this recipe, and then you talk through the entire process of baking the cake to answer, and like that is
Yes.
that can then be very frustrating, and other emotions or whatever, like other things about that are
I
not
experienced
good
that
from
too.
my side of it.
I experienced
Right?
that too. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and like I just want to, yeah.
That also might be partly me as an individual thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
That might be how I'm oriented, because I'm also quite different from my non-autistic peers, if you
Sure.
will.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the OCD or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
although I'm a representative of a non-autistic person, I don't think that I'm
No.
representative of like
No, of
normal.
course. And that's actually, so that is a very good point to point out, sort of, and I say that contrasting how I was saying, like, we maybe don't need to be saying like, oh, this is different everywhere. But no, that is a very good thing to remind me in case I accidentally did take you as a token of holistic people, because you absolutely shouldn't be.
Right. And he's also Kyle's why I really enjoy speaking with Kyle. He does not read into the things that I do. Sometimes he's had questions about it, and even will like pull back, and then we'll talk about it when he's feeling reassured that like I wasn't trying to do something potentially hurtful, because I could be. And I can see how his interpretation makes sense at times, where he's like, well, why are you doing it like that? Is she trying to be hurtful? Is she trying to offend me or insult me? I'm like, no, I'm not trying to do that. But I can understand, like, that's where autistics could be accused of being manipulative. If someone's like, well, I think you had this motivation for saying that thing in that way, when really I was talking about a different set of information. And then the thing I wanted to add is like, sometimes when Kyle and I are talking, and we're still working on this, so I'm going to generalize a little bit, but what happens is he'll give me information. I'm like, no, I just need this part. He's like, that's all. You just need that part. I'm like, yes. And that's all. So we'll kind of like keep going over. I'm like, no, I don't want to go over all that. I just need this piece of information. I'm asking, or I'm bringing this up because I need this specifically.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of move on from it. But we've been working on that. Is that fair to say, Kyle?
I think another aspect to add into it is me saying a lot of things about the thing is because I'm uncertain that the individual I'm speaking to is like fully encapsulating all of the details in the right position. So I think because even when I talk to non-autistic people, I'm known for being long-winded. I try not to be, but it's almost like at the same time, it's like you got me talking about something I'm interested in, and I want to make sure you get it right. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the overlap with the autistic person with special interest. But I think there's an element of that. and I wanted to add in a slight joke, but I also
Sure.
happen to believe it, is I'm also incredibly scorpionic. So there's this very high need to make sure that there is a full and honest understanding that I'm not sending you out into the world missing information that I either believe or know is crucial in order to perform the task correctly and safely.
Okay, you said you're absolutely something, a word, I heard like acerbionic. Is that what you said?
No, scorpionic astrology.
Oh.
Scorpionic. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
If you look at my chart, I'm an insane person, and Shadow can attest to that.
Oh, so I want to add on to that. And sometimes that will frustrate me because I'm interrupting the flow of what we're doing or the conversation because I'm trying to get the disability accommodation information that I need. Like and then now we're doing something else entirely. And now I'm more outside of what I wanted to be doing, which is to participate as if I wasn't disabled, or at least not participate
right.
with my disability, limiting my participation.
And when I'm specific, like there's a circumstance where I'm specifically asking for the answer to an extremely specific thing, and that more often than not is because it's the circumstance you were just saying, Jane, that there is one key thing that I am missing either in a series of reasoning, cognitive factoring I'm doing, or in the contextual awareness that I'm trying to have of the conversation I'm in, one or the other.
Right.
And so what I need more than anything is that answer distilled as much as possible, as fast as possible, so that I don't get lost, right?
Yes.
I'm either going to lose the context of the conversation, or I'm going to lose the cognitive factoring that like is this chemistry situation in my mind that needs the last thing added right now before the whatever you call it, the chemical reaction is no longer viable.
And I'll feel hurt because these buildings are incredibly important to me, these cognitive factoring, even manufacturing, because this is how I navigate the world. And I was trying to build another part of the model of the world that I'm in with the way that I can interact with it. And I'm losing that opportunity. And also that means I'm not going to contribute as well in the future because I need all of those opportunities to be fulfilled when they can be, because this is my only ability. And like, there's another point where I was like, fuck, I'm building it.
Right. And there's definitely a way in which like Jane and I might be very different than the autistic typical on this, because we are both so specialized linguistically, and right, so like a single word packs so much meaning within it for us.
And the idea of somebody reading intention into something, as I was talking about earlier, I want to circle back to that and polish that up, where somebody's like, then Kyle doesn't do this, but this can happen a lot and it's really bad. Somebody will derail saying, you must be asking that for these reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with why we're asking it. So now we're also having somebody getting confused why we're asking it and apply motives to us, double empathy problem, that we do not have, that also are negative what's the word I'm looking for? Negative assessments of our character.
And actually, you might have noticed I've begun trying to preload question asking with a statement on the purpose of the question to reduce context misunderstandings.
Right. Yep. And if there's like a really snappy, like one word way to say, like, I'm doing this specific thing that autistic people have to do, like that would be even better, because then, and people could, I guess, think that we're lying, but why should I constantly have to prove that? That seems like it probably would solve a lot of it. Like maybe some people would still be dicks and go out of their way to be dicks. So I think it would actually be really helpful to be able to say, like, this is why I'm asking this. You're going to be confused why I'm asking this. I already get that that's going to happen because this doesn't make sense, that I can't see this information that is already baked caked, right? And that I'll never see it, but I can see this other information that in your cake isn't a crucial ingredient, but for me is. So I'm asking about that ingredient. And then if I lose the opportunity to continue to work on what I can see, and now I'm starting to have somebody do character assassination, I'm like, holy shit. Like, of course, I'm not going to want to socialize then. Oh, this is going to bother the guy. I'm going to have to discharge this shit. I'll come up with a solution.
Wait, you're gonna have to what?
I'm gonna-
Assertion for what?
Her headset is about to die, so she's gonna.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Right. Total aside thing then. Okay.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, and to maybe kind of close the lid on this part, or not, but to my contribution to maybe like a terminating point is like kind of in summary is I'm explaining information. I'm certainly not from my experience, I'm certainly not in the typical like normal, I would think, because other people do seem to explain information more similarly to, like, non-autistic people do seem to explain information more similarly to each other versus myself. And to be careful not to toot my own horn, but generally speaking, I'm certainly more intelligent across the board than the people I'm interacting with in general. Depending on what it is, they might be smarter at something than me, but in general, I think part of the reason why I'm able to accomplish efficiency in a given system quickly is probably because I can pay attention and hold a lot more details than the average person I've come into contact with, and also my ability to situate details in the GC grid, if you will. I think that's also higher than most people because most people I interact with do tend towards the doing as arriving motivation. I certainly am doing as building as my central motivation, but I can do thrive.
From the limited interaction I have with you, what I would say that really stands out to me, like in relation to your intelligence, is that you are extremely far above the norm on introspectiveness, as far as I can tell, and that completely flavors the way that you think in a way that leads towards what we in this group would certainly talk about as like intelligence.
Yeah,
I think so.
I agree.
Right, just because of the sort of the like contextual implications of intelligence as like being more processing power or whatever. But like I think that being an introspective person makes you use your intelligence in a more useful way, generally speaking, or at least from my perspective.
Yeah, and I think like one way I like to look at intelligence is kind of the standard, being able to recognize patterns and being able to create new patterns from previous patterns, being able to understand the cause and effect of a pattern, etc.
Right. That's a very good definition, right? And so if people aren't introspective, then their ability to, deal with patterns is being turned off, like literally switched off, because they're choosing not to look for patterns, right? And so, yeah,
the patterns are either frustrating or too much to keep in mind. So it's like, I don't know, like my dog Ginger, she can follow my commands and everything like that, so she's a smart dog, but she doesn't know how to open up doors. She knows how to push doors open, whereas like my dog Dutch, who he can follow orders, not the same, he doesn't have the same like speed of learning a trick than Ginger does. He never did, but he knows how to, he can figure out how to open up something quicker than she can. So it's like, well, who's smarter at that point? It depends on what you're talking about. But so I know, again, I only say that to say, I think a lot of the reasons why I might be a little bit talkative is because I'm seeing all of this information, I'm using all this information, and I want to provide as much information to somebody as I can, because I want them to be fully equipped for what they could possibly experience, but understanding that sometimes it's awesome, it's probably too much, but
well, I mean, I can't, like, the problem is if, yeah, exactly, if I can't use the information, it just creates, and then it kind of like, I don't want to say infantilizes me, that's way too strong of a word, but like I have had like decades of working with the information I can work on, so when I'm asking for it and somebody's like not understanding well, I couldn't communicate it, to be fair, right? But like hopefully I can communicate this, and then that misunderstanding is cleared up. But it felt like somebody wasn't trusting that I needed the information that I know that I need, and I'm the one who's navigated the world with a disability all these years. So I've had no way to articulate that before, but I can understand kind of the feeling of it matching with that scenario. And now if I can communicate that, I think I could probably just not have that happen potentially, which would be awesome because that would translate to all of us. Because that sucks, you know, where it's like somebody's like giving me, I'm like, no, that's not the way I can digest the information. And currently what we're left with is saying, oh, you have to be more literal, you have to be more specific. I'm like, I don't think that communicates what people think it does. I don't think that's going to succeed, and I don't think it is succeeding. I don't think that, like, I don't see the underemployment, unemployment, you know, isolation. Like I had an interview, by the way, that I got to do with someone who does a method for teaching autistic kids, and it got to be on the radio. It was very cool. It was played yesterday morning. I'm going to post that. It's awesome. But one of the things that came up is that like a lot of times the kids become homebound and even stay homebound as adults because it's become this problem of like they're just too spontaneous in how they're going to, like, it's unpredictable. They're too unpredictable because the world is too unpredictable to them. So if there was just some way to say that, like, this is the kind of information I need, it's not literal, it's not specific, it's not anything that you guys are imagining because you're imagining it as an already baked cake. And we need to break it down more fundamentally, looking at very, very, very accurate models of the brain. That's our only hope, in my opinion.
And when they're saying, like, I could see possibly that when they're saying you're very literal, what they're actually saying is that you keep trying to build cakes with like 2-ingredient cakes.
Right.
Right. And it's like, no, that's still not the thing I'm doing.
Yes, exactly. Right? Exactly.
You're imagining a simpler version of the
yes.
thing you're doing.
Yes.
And that's not what I'm doing.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. And we would do the same thing as a sighted person to somebody who's congenitally blind is what I'm offering. And that's actually, we should spend in my opinion, we should spend a lot more time talking with congenitally blind people and researching and contrasting these groups and reviewing strategies for both. And that would be the appropriate way to start to remodel what autism is. And then we get away from a lot of other downstream problems that we have of this, but we also get rid of some other popular trends that I'm very concerned about. Like, I don't like most of the online content about autism, if I'm being blunt. This is exactly why. This problem. I mean, there's other aspects, but it's all so deeply, this is like the root of it.
Sorry, which problem is the root of why you just
the root of it is not understanding the already baked cake and the fact that we need specific information to navigate.
Oh wait, her thing. I think set up the thing. I caught most of that though, James. You know what that makes me think then? I think what might have to happen is if you say like I need this let me ask you guys this real quick.
Sorry, Kyle's also coming through on Jane's speaker now. Okay. Yeah, so that I need specific information. There are times when I need specific information from people, and then right, like no. So there are times when I have a question about something, and in the analogy, I would say I'm asking about one of the ingredients in this thing, right? But when I ask about the ingredient in that thing, that one thing I don't understand, the person I ask, who's allistic, cannot see that one thing as this separate thing that needs to be answered, and instead answer a different question that I didn't ask and it's completely meaningless to the question I asked. Oh, right. And so in the analogy, it's like I'm asking for the third ingredient in this cake recipe, and then they are telling me what a cake is, right? And so there's even this element of like of infantilism or whatever, where it's like I asked you a question about the cake, about a cake. So obviously I know what a cake is. Why, right? And then I start to like run into this wall of, does language not work the same for me and you? Because it is obviously clear from the way that I frame this question that I know about X. Why are you now explaining X? Right. Right, like I'm demonstrating I don't have the total configurational understanding of the situation, but I I'm not asking for the total configurational understanding because my brain can't hold that or do that. I'm asking a question that would enable me to understand what they are understanding configurationally. It would let me understand it featurally. But then so that's where the language is missing, like what Jane was saying, right? Is there's at the moment there's no way to say I need you specifically not to answer the way you are about to, and instead answer the featural question I have just asked so that I could build up my equivalent to a configurational understanding. Right? This same way a blind person has to ask whatever they have to ask to operate in the same spaces that someone isn't, right? Mm. Mhm. Oh, oh, okay. No, right. Right. So this analogy needs to be moved back a whole layer, which Jane has sort of just done, right? Is that it's because the way I phrased it is too clear and specific, right? It's that I need to do the equivalent of what they're doing with an ingredient in the cake. So I need to ask a question about why that ingredient exists in the recipe. Why are we doing this? And then they say, oh, it's part of the recipe. But what I am trying to figure out is what is the feature of this that makes it part of the recipe so that I can connect it into my model of what is going on, because I need to understand why for things to like make sense is too broad. Oh my god, sorry, I'm getting loud because this is huge, right? It's it it's not make sense. It can't fit into my brain unless it fits in the way that it fits in for me, right? And Jane, here I think this is where the comparison with the congenitally blind doesn't work at all, because this is the kind of memory issue that it is, right? That it is like a completely different idea, that like this concept cannot fit into my brain. Mhm. Right. And like, to stretch the analogy further, it is like we have had to spend our whole life building everything from like chemistry basic, from elements. And so they keep talking like they can't work on that level because they haven't been forced to work on that level, which makes sense. Of course they wouldn't build everything from raw elements when they have access to flour. But that, like, you I don't have access to flour. I have to make it myself in the way that I learned how to do this chemistry, right? I'm gonna have to listen back to this recording for sure.
And I think another aspect of it too is like what tools you have available. So, they're like, yeah, you get the whisk out and you whisk it. So I don't have a whisk. It's like, well, whisk is this thing right here. And it's like, I know I don't have that. And it's like, yeah, but you need a whisk for it. And so, well, I don't have that.
Yeah, so there's another part of me that is thinking about like this analogy. This can be counterproductive because it is too literal. And there's this thing that I can't get across in language yet about the situation that definitely doesn't fit into like that example you're saying of like not having a whisk or whatever.
Which example, the cake or the blind
The
person?
sort of the cake analogy.
Uh, Yeah, because it's also, I think another big aspect of it is baking a cake by nature is a doing as building thing. Um, and a lot of times people they're not even trying to bake a cake. They're moving, which
Right. Which
makes it even
is
more difficult to make an analogy.
right. That's a whole another layer, right? That comes in, that I like the way my brain works. I tend not to remember to try to factor that in, because I don't just automatically start trying to factor in the context of why, or of motives, right? Like, motives are not a thing that I think about when people do things by default.
I've had to, in my work experience, I've had to compromise between, I didn't realize I was compromising between these two until Jane kind of gave me the language of doing as arriving in the building.
Mhm.
But in my early days, I would get a lot of criticism for the time I would spend setting up what I'm about to do, right? Um, but now that I've been there for long enough and my methodology has proven to be superior for certain things, I don't get as much pushback, right? But I've also had to, the compromise is that there's also times where it's like, yeah, a younger me probably would have spent X amount of time and energy building a thing to get my thing done. But in this particular case, I could just go to the place I need to go and then do the thing with like
Mhm.
an inefficient means, but in time, it's a little bit more efficient because I'm not spending as much time. So it's like this kind of balance between, do I want to just get started with what I have, or do I want to build myself a little setup, a little jig or whatever, right? And so I feel comfortable with where I'm at now, but very early on, especially since I was like 21 when I started the same job that I have. It's evolved over time, but I've worked at the same place since I was 21, and I'm 32.
Mhm.
Basically, being young and that's your first job and and the people you're working with are like older than you, that can kind of cause like a little bit of like screw you guys, like picking on me, right?
Yeah.
So it might have been a little bit of that, but it's also another thing where it's like, oh, they're motivated by arriving for sure. In general, I think most people really are. That's how it is. So I think the baking the cake analogy is good. And then I also think that maybe another analogy has to happen. It's like you're trying to bake a cake. They're trying to like sell cakes or something. Like they're like way off the other thing.
Sure.
Something like that. I'm not sure. Just kind of spitballing.
No. But I could see how that layer adds on the fact that there can be a complete disinterest in cakes from the person
Yeah.
who you are, like if it's work, you're employed to bake cakes for this person, but they actually have no interest in making quality cakes at all because all they care about is selling cakes. And so it can add a whole nother layer of disconnect when it comes to asking questions, especially if we're factoring in the fact that like non-autistic people are modeling and then talking with layers of motives incorporated more.
Yeah. Like you guys want to bake a cake, so you're trying to make sure you bake the best cake because you're trying to build a cake, right? And
Yes.
then a lot of people in the world who are not autistic, they're right there with you. They're like, yeah, I'm trying to make the best cake. But then they're like, but I also understand that I'm not going to have this job if I sit and make the best cake. So I just need to make a good enough cake because the person who has the money, they're not even a baker. They don't give a fuck, or they don't care if the cake is like the perfect
Mhm.
cake. They just need something that's good enough to sell in volume enough to arrive at the spot where they've got the nice car. Like that's all the cake is to them, a tool.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of where to kind of reconnect again to the main thing of someone's talking about feminism. Jane really likes feminism. It
Mhm.
seems like this person is using feminism for a different aim. So it doesn't matter
Yes.
if they get the feminism right. They just need
Right.
to tell everyone this is good feminism, and I'm going to convince you it's good feminism either by pointing to an authority figure, appeal by authority, or by crying about it, or whatever. And then, so long as you agree with me that my feminism's good, that must mean that I'm therefore saying something good, and then I get what I really want, which is whatever they really want, outside of the feminist
Mhm.
thing. And I think that could be hard for an autistic person. And that's again to go back to the big thing at the start of this thing, at the start of this house cat session.
Mhm.
Um, this kind of like, yeah, you autistic people are trying to work on your thing. That person says they're working on it too, but really what they're actually saying is, well, I don't need to work on it. I've already worked on it. I'm already using it. Like, but how can you be using it if it's built wrong? And then it gets into
Right.
the you know
Right. And it's already functioning for them and their
right
purposes. So when you say it's built wrong, they say, No, it can't be built wrong. It's working." Right.
right
And so that puts you at like this complete disconnect where further attempts to communicate just resolve into that same disconnect repeating itself, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah.
The disagreement on the established facts really is one part of it, not the whole thing.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm. Right. Mm. Yeah.
Mhm. Mm. Oh.
Mhm.
Right. Or just like thinking about things I've gone through before, is that like it's this frustration of this sound logic that you have developed being completely dismissed by somebody else, right?
Mhm.
That's where I get hooked on it and have to talk it through with someone like yourself, like has just happened with this situation, is because th- it makes no sense to dismiss the logic that I'm putting forth or you put forth in this situation. I put forth in different situations, right? And to have people do it anyways, it like breaks my understanding of reality. And I need to have a reality check-in by this like enthusiastic or whatever going over the situation again and again and again to make sure there's no fundamental errors there, that everything is absolutely airtight and the other person is incredulously 100% in the wrong, even though that doesn't make sense to me that somebody could be so like blind to what's so important to me, right? Mhm. Mm.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Mhm.
In some of the stuff I was looking at, like the feminists talking about whatever they had to be talking about. But one thing stuck out to me. They said, wait 1 second. Sorry about that. I got to keep in mind that that microphone can pick me up. I heard good advice, and basically what it was, regardless of who said it, if somebody felt like they were going to cry or be upset by something, to just quietly and politely kind of like go outside the room until that is done, and then come back in. Instead of everybody stop what you're doing, stop what you're doing. I'm crying. Stop. Right? If it's a room with multiple people having a discussion about something.
I just realized that my stream probably couldn't hear anything I was saying, so that kind of sucks that I lost all that probably. But
Oh
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
For how long? Like all stream?
Just the part where I had to switch my mic, which kind of sucks.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like a lot of feminists, but it's okay. I mean, I'll just keep working on it over and over again. But yeah, like, can you say what you last said, Kyle? I was making that note and then I lost what I was going to respond to. Shit.
The advice for this group, they said, if anyone in the audience feels like they're gonna cry or otherwise get dysregulated, like emotionally, instead of pausing the discussion, that individual person needs to quietly and politely just quietly leave the room. When it's done, come right back in and continue the discussion.
Right.
Instead of everybody stop. I don't want to hear it anymore. And
Exactly.
Everyone else has
exactly, because otherwise you're reinforcing. That's what I was saying that nobody could hear. But like basically the idea that like you're here using sound logic, and because people believe in triune brain, that there's logic and emotion. Women are emotional, men are logical. And I was saying to support that like now that they're in spaces, they can see this behavior happening. I doubt you saw that in the behavior where you were running around before. Maybe some aping at it, but it probably wasn't happening because it was dominated by dudes, like. To speak plainly, so like yeah right so now you're seeing
so it was beyond being dominated by dudes. It was like built in the image of and the methods of specifically narcissistic abusive dudes.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Which is what all dudes are supposed to be like, is a sociopath. And it's like no, like that's why someone's like, man, misandry. I'm like, girl, you don't even need misandry, you just need misogyny. Like what are you talking about? Like, anyways, it doesn't matter. That's like feminist theory shit. But, 101, important stuff. So, what I was saying that I wanted to just reiterate, because now it can be heard, and I want to say it for practice, and it's because it's important. Now you've seen it. When somebody when a woman's ability to do logic is questioned by anyone, the questioner, if they say they are emotionally dysregulated, is now my job to emotionally regulate them, which puts me in my place and takes me away from ever having my logic scrutinized or questioned or put to critical, scrutiny. Scrutinize it, do it, but really do it. But you're not going to do it because you're going to make me emotionally regulate you, and I refuse to do that. That is not okay.
And to be clear, as a male, let me speak on feminism for a second. That even if a woman does that behavior for that outcome, that's still from patriarchy.
Yes,
where
correct.
The woman's place is to regulate the emotion of the people around them.
Yes, other women, girls, everyone. That is your role in life. If you start to try to occupy the role of mapping out logic and arguments and making structures and making social structures that would be shared by all of us, advancing and making and inventing, creating, inventing logical things, you will be put back into your place. And that's unacceptable. So especially if this is coming in a meta sense around feminism. So I wanted to say, like, I'll walk away from something when I say there is no way that you can say my logic isn't sound and you weren't trying to do some other stuff. And if you come at me with more emotional regulation stuff, then you're trying to put me in my role. Then you believe in triune brain theory. You believe that there's logic emotion splits, which doesn't even make sense. And you're trying to make me do something that feminism has argued is not my responsibility, is your responsibility, and is not what my brain is good for. My brain is good for logic. Thank you.
It's just an interesting note to me is that in those spaces, right, like the debate Twitch space, to be able to attempt following the path of logic, actually, with a lot of these men, I would have to preemptively like regulate their
them.
emotions
Yes.
with submissiveness and like very, very carefully approaching the topics, because otherwise they would jump into their like aggressive male debate posturing, right? So rather than doing the thing that you're talking about, where they say to deal with my emotions, right? They just become emotional, right?
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yes.
That way
Yes.
of engaging is
Yes.
emotionality.
Exactly.
Right.
And, yes. And I've interacted with the kind of red pill manosphere types every now and then, back when it was popping in like 2014, 15, just to be like, study person, what do you do? And I would even have like pretty point blank things where I would say, like, what you're currently trying to do, your process, is you are trying to make me emotionally regulate you, because that's all that this is. There is no deeper argument. This is just another way for you to try to get emotional regulation that you cannot do for yourself. Hey, Nabil, good to see you. It's been a while. I hope that you've been streaming regularly. It's really nice to see you. So yeah, so basically the emotional dysregulation that this person is experiencing is an ongoing problem all the time that has absolutely nothing to do with me. And they are saying that in order for me to participate in the logical conversation, they are the gatekeeper. But I don't believe that they have any such, access to anything. There's nothing past them besides their own pain, their own problems, their own stunted development. And yeah, does it suck that it got stunted? Yeah, but feminism has a solution for that, and it's liberation of the species from this abusive dynamic. And so all they're trying to do, the only thing they're trying to do, is create an emotional category of people that don't have logic, so they can pretend they have logic even though they've never exercised it a day in their lives. And that's why they're so upset.
So simply put, could it be?
I don't think this would be
completely inclusive.
Like of the totality of feminism, but would it be?
I can't hear Kyle at all right now.
Oh, he's using the mic. Okay, sorry. I was gonna type. Go.
I'll just go into the other room. Sorry about that, guys. We'll figure it out. Okay, let me restart. I don't know if what I'm about to say is, it's not intended to be completely encapsulating of feminism, but I'm wondering if this is like a good jumping off point. Is that feminism is the study and analysis of, like, you guys will have to clean this up for me because I'm gonna have to go into how I think about things. But it's how the systems that we have view women as either inferior in general, and or that they have specific roles. Because I know one common one that fails very quickly is like, well, we're not saying women are inferior, we're just saying that they're better at taking care of people. We're not saying women are inferior, we're just saying they're better at this thing, which it's still putting a role onto them. Right? Is that, what do you think? Sorry if that's not good enough, but.
Yes, because no, that is what it is. And then when they start to implode, they're saying, "See, you have to show how good you are at taking care of me." Like, and then, but the reason why they're doing that is if you don't, now the threats get worse. Now the or else starts to happen. Now the stalking starts to happen. And for women, you can hear it coming. You can hear it where it's patronage annihilation. People also, that's the term that I came up with. People say triangulation, or where you're setting up a victim, rescuer, and a villain, and they're telling you, if I need to, I'll switch tactics. If I need to, I'll switch tactics. If I need to, I'll switch tactics. You don't want me to. I'm sad now, but what if I get angry? That's what it is. This is a system of abuse, and if you listen to abuse and you have a good model of boundaries, I started having this new concept called a ghost ship. Okay. So there's a ghost captain, they're on a ghost ship, and they are out to sea forever. They'll never get on land, they'll never build anything. I'm on an island building cool stuff, and I've been building cool stuff for a very long time. The ghost ship comes up, and they say to me, "You are on Volcano Monster Island, you must be a volcano monster. You need to get onto this ship right now to prove to me that you're not a volcano monster, and also you frightened me. Please get off of that. Please don't build logical things. You have to come here and fix me. And I'm not going to fix you." And then they go, "Oh, well, one of your volcano balls blew a hole in my boat. This wasn't here when you when I got here before. You made this. You re-traumatized my boat hole, and you need to come here and fix me. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then they might switch tactics and say, oh, but there's this wonderful island I'm going to. That's future faking. And they say, can't you come over here where we will finally respect you and listen to you and your logic, but you have to get off your island where you're doing logic, and you have to come with us. And while you're doing that, you have to pretend that this, group of lost boy, ghost crew that we have, is also Wendy darling. Won't you please take care of us? Won't you please take care of us, Wendy darling? No, that's what it is. So we have to be able to say, no, I am doing logic. You cannot see it as logic. And if anything, it's a threat to you because you can't do logic. You can't do building. You can't work on these sorts of things. And yet you have been given the authority to do it. And what do? You sit there and feel weird about yourself because none of this makes sense. You sit there and feel weird about yourself because your friends are psychopaths. You sit there and are a psychopath. That's the problem. And confronting that, I don't know what that's going to feel like. I'm glad I don't, frankly. But what I want to be able to do is contribute to my species. And the way that this is going, my contribution will never be to fix a man so that he can rightfully take over.
And I think it's important to keep in mind it's not near the same amount. But one second. I think it's important too that if a woman is using the systems of like the tactics that have been given to her through patriarchy as well, it's still a cause of the patriarchy, not as if it's not an anti-man thing per se. It's more of an anti-system thing.
Yeah, anti-ideology.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's better. Anti that specific ideology, right?
Yeah, and I'm using the language of the ideology to call it out. So because when people don't have any language to call this out, it's a very difficult thing to get out of, I would argue, but also it's just not necessary, because then why aren't we using the language? Oh, because you need to regulate someone's feelings because the language is making somebody's feel. I'm like, oh, we're back here again. Oh, how fun. I'm back here again. Okay, how many band-aids, how many boo-boos? Where do I have to kiss everybody's boo-boo? Do I have to kiss everybody on the ghost ship's boo-boo? I was building something on my own. I was building on something. I got the buried treasure. I reinvented things that didn't need to be reinvented because I didn't get to read the literature in the first place, because we just bury it again and it gets buried again. Well, I unburied it. I'm sitting here in a heap of books building. And so if somebody comes up to me and starts some extra shit, I don't care what they think it is. I know what it really is. And I'm not going to, regulate somebody. It's just a lot. It's just, especially when it's like, who's out here regulating me? Now my friends are. Also, by the way, thank you. But would you say either, besides for the fact that I'm autistic as hell and I'm going to circle the logic, is the emotional regulation hard? Kyle, support? Would you say that? It's okay if you say yes, but I'm going to guess the answer is kind of no.
It's
very different because you have a lot more.
Yeah.
Wait, the emotional regulation that I give to you, I
Right.
don't even really notice doing it. Right, I'm just like engaging with you naturally in response to whatever the situation is where you need some. Right, like I regulate your emotions by just having a conversation about reality with you. Yeah,
which stands to reason that what's really actually happening is Jane is the one regulating Jane's emotions, and then we're serving as a friend and a helper in that process. But fundamentally, the majority of the process is going on inside of Jane, and then the conversational partner is more of like a corroborating or a witness, or someone helping out with process, not like I'm Jane's friend. I'm gonna drop every single thing I'm doing and agree with whatever she's saying in order to get her to stop crying, right?
No, I would probably split it into two things, right? Like we are corroborating, reality checking for Jane, and then we are also reality checking for Jane that she has people in her life in the way she didn't used to, right? Mm-hmm. And then Jane is doing all the regulation herself from the reality check situation.
Right. Right.
Nabil,
Which is a lot different than. Go ahead.
you finish your thought. I want to add something that Nabil said in chat that I think I wanted to introduce.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a lot different than, oh hey, I don't feel good. Can you regulate my emotions for me and under the way I want you to? And if you don't do it right, I'm going to accuse you of not doing it right, and I'm going to accuse you of being this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
So it's quite different, and also the context is extremely different because we're actual friends, not even associates, right? Because it would be kind of weird to have an associate like in a discussion setting, like have to drop what they're working on. They're there for the information, and now they're having to do this. Like that could be nice of them, but and then even more so, like specifically like a stranger just defaulting to, hey, I don't even know you. I literally met you less than 48 hours ago. Take care of me at this moment, or else.
Yeah.
Right, and beyond being Jane's friends, like we are her spouse and best friend.
Right. And okay, so Nabil said and also shared something in their own life that is relevant to this. So he said, I think also white supremacy is part of this conversation as well. Women of color also go through hell having to walk through the minefield that is white men's feelings. And I remember my mom telling me and my sister post 9/11 to never disagree with a white man to his face. And I think, and I was saying that like they have to also regulate whoever they are assigned to according to men who sit around deciding it, like discussing flavors of ice cream. And that there's ways that women are categorized in general that have to do with that, and also that there's this idea that you have to mimic the way a white man talks. So if the white man is saying fucking every other sentence, which a lot of these guys do, you have to be like that. And it even gets like absorbed into you because that's who you hear talking over and over and over and over and over and over again. So like the mannerisms, the behaviors that we're exposed to are also like recreations of their version of quote unquote being logical, which doesn't sound like that at all. Like, you know who we should be emulating is speakers who are phenomenal, who nobody even reads. Speakers who are phenomenal that have you can find still video recordings of people from the 1960s who are black advocates of civil rights and women's rights, and how many people have heard those speeches? To emulate them, and to emulate them with respect to their ideas, not because it's all a facade. It's all a facade. There's no ideas underneath the fucking. There's no ideas underneath that. It's not praxis.
Yes.
So like what do we sound like when we have a successful conversation? Well, we should follow the people that truly had successful conversations. And people may pay lip service to having paid attention to those conversations, but what you actually find is that's not true. Even though now we have the internet, we could actually look it up, and we have to. And we also have to accept that we're going to have to reinvent some wheels by accident, not realize we're doing it, and then unbury the thing that gets buried over and over and over again, which is people that have worked through these sorts of dynamics to ultimately liberate the species. Why it's there, we can also do an analysis and should and must, and then we can compare analyses that have already been done. But ultimately, the goal of it is to address things like what we're talking about with autism, where if we cannot say what these dynamics are and why they're happening, we can't say anything. We can't succeed in describing reality. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to describe the facade of a person who illegitimately has power, who can't do logical reasoning, and I'll put this on two criterias and a third. The first one is non-abusive. Okay, abuse is manipulation, lying, doing these things I was talking about with the ghost ship. That's just abuse. Okay, so we don't want abusive people to be in positions of authority, power, telling people information and guiding people's behavior. We do need to put people in that position. Why? Because it's just how we're going to organize ourselves as a species. We have a limited amount of information we can hold in our heads. We have only so much memory. We have only so much insight. So it's to work around that problem so we can eyeballs in multiple directions with multiple expertise coming together. Probably a good idea to incorporate some of our machine learning for that end, and I think we ultimately will. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. So number one, non-abusive. So we need people that are not inclined to do these other two criteria incorrectly or insufficiently to be fit to be in that position of leadership. So those two are pro-sociality, sometimes called morality. I will call it pro-sociality. And the other one is the ability to model and also go up and down level of abstraction while also modeling. So modeling reality and prosociality. And modeling reality sometimes people call intelligence. So if somebody goes along with this system, which I think is rooted in my opinion is it's rooted in misogyny, patriarchy, whatever you want to call that, light switching. But I think it starts with that because we actually do have a split, and then you can associate other things with that split to reify them. Say like, well, I did have an XX large gamete and XY small gamete create my existence for all intents and purposes. Maybe some wiggle room here and there, but that's basically the deal. And we didn't even know that on that level, but we saw the observable reality of that. And then we saw that there's a sky, and sometimes it's a night sky and sometimes it's a day sky. And sometimes we're looking up at the sky and sometimes we're looking down at the ground. And sometimes we're above the ground and sometimes we're buried underneath it and dead. Sometimes we're alive. So we can associate white, black, good, bad, alive, dead. Okay, and I'm going to bootstrap that we can do that because of man, woman. So that's what I'm going to say happened there. So then if that's the dynamic and we want to liberate the species from it, I believe that we have to understand that. And then we understand that this system doesn't work because it says to people that they have these essential traits of goodness, of logic, of emotion. Emotion becomes down, it becomes bad. Until you say that it's good, because we don't want you to pretend that, we don't actually have no logic, that the emperor has no clothes, that the Wizard of Oz is just a little man behind a curtain, that he's not pro-social, and he's not intelligent, and he's not able to model, and he's not moral. That all of that is just a pretense because you already put him into a position of power because he could do what? Abuse. He had an increased ability to abuse because of some of our aspects of dimorphism and some aspects of how we've experienced that embodied dimorphism, and that's it. And that's what feminist analysis gives you. And then we can move on, finally, hopefully, one day. Okay, that was a lot, but I wanted to, I'm always practicing, like, did that come across? Was that clean enough? Because it has to be so clean that people don't say, like, logic, Jane can put a band-aid on my boo-boo, and boo-boo, and boo-boo, and boo-boo. Oh my god, no.
I mean, that was an excellent and fast, re-summarization of your overall system. Like, that was great.
Thank you. Awesome. And I'll get even better at it.
Right, and I'm always happy to hear it again because I don't have those details, like, enmeshed in my memory deeply the way you do.
Right.
As having built that whole understanding yourself.
And that there's been people building it, and then we have to unbury. I haven't even unburied all the stuff of people that built this.
Yes. To clarify, I'm in the position where my understanding is a reflection of your understanding that you've shared with me, because I have not gone and... Well,
no, but you just read a really amazing one of the books. You are starting to kick up and get, it's hard to do, and there's a reason why it's hard to do. And then if we question that, I just believe in people so much that I think we'll get this shit together. I don't believe we are what these systems said we are, because they're not what they said they were, because they're not the Wizard of Oz. Okay, I think
I'm back over here now. I just switched my headset out. One second. Okay, and then I should be okay on the chat. Let me double check. Yeah, no, I am. Okay, sorry. So, yeah.
I was gonna say, for the context of it again, if this is still kind of where we're at, or what we're working on, I should say. An autistic person's, like, I don't know, maybe their relationship to this discrete event, and the discrete event being, they have a knowledge basis on a particular concept or entity, if you will, and when confronted with somebody who is saying that they also are working on that thing,
Mm-hmm.
the autistic person is going to continue to work on that thing as they do normally.
Yeah.
And maybe knowing, I guess, kind of sooner in the build that like this person's actually not building what you're actually building. You think that they're trying to, maybe, or you're accurately assessing their inability to build the item with their methodology and what they're using in their materials. But then, like, how does the autistic person know that, and how does the autistic person kind of stay away from that? Like, is that kind of where we're at with it right now, or?
Question again? I need to process that.
Um,
I heard the setup. I just want the last part one more time because I'm.
Is that where we're at in the conversation, or is that what we're building in the conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're at that point. Yeah, and also that like we can talk about like how difficult it is to do any of this while you also are underemployed and unemployed, while you're also worried about other people like you being under and unemployed coming down the pipeline, like and that other people maybe don't have enough time to work on this, and that's fair. But then how do we make time to do it when if you're reifying the thing that's the problem, how do you make time to dismantle it and locate all of the buried texts?
Right, because when we say like other people don't have the time to do that, what we're actually saying is like they don't have the time to do that while maintaining their life successfully. And it's like, well, we aren't maintaining our life successfully, but we are forced to make time to do all of this. Right?
I think that although I would think that there's people who want to engage with it, but they don't have enough time. I think those people exist, but I actually think that you guys are actually running into the problem that you're actually running to is the demographic of people who they might even have the time to do it, but they actually don't have the interest in it. And that's why they have time I don't think time is their issue per se, because they have plenty of time for
No,
whatever.
you're absolutely correct, right? They will say that they don't have the time, but that's because they see what we're talking about as something they need to morally express an interest in doing without actually doing it.
Right. Yes.
Right? Because they don't have the interest. That's why they don't actually do it, right? But
yeah, here's an example, right? Like maybe like okay, let's assume that neither of you, or including Shadow, any autistic person, let's assume that you are just not interested in tanks, like the tank, right? Like specifically like U.S. military tanks throughout the ages, right? So you're not interested in it. If there was a discussion about tanks, would you try to talk about the tanks, or would you just not even engage? Like,
no, I would not. I just wouldn't engage. No.
If it touched upon a special interest, like how U.S. hegemony across the planet and how tanks can facilitate that, and then maybe you can nest it in your actual interest, which let's assume is like the historical invasion and oppression of other people, right? Then it's a little bit of a different conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But you can say you don't even think to say like I know a bunch about tanks when we talk about tanks. A lot of people, there's a discussion about tanks. They want to have a conversation. This conversation's in front of them. Let me get started. I'm gonna start talking about tanks, even though I really don't know that much about tanks. But this person is going to say they know about tanks because they know 5 things about tanks, even though you need to know like 20,000 things about tanks to have a real conversation about tanks. But because they know the 5, they're just going to keep repeating the 5 and using it to further the actual conversation they want to have, which is, I am somebody who can be trusted to lead a discussion about policy.
Yes, I am, because I am morally and intellectually superior. Or I am very pro-social, so pro-social, and so that's what I wanted to add to that. I'm so pro-social and I am so good at modeling that I'm worth the risk that is innate in putting someone into that position, which we do need as a species. So it's actually, everything's political in the sense of even like a political campaign. They are campaigning. They are not actually involved in the things. They are just campaigning for the position.
And it's like
And,
sometimes even just a position of authority. A lot of times, I think.
It
Doesn't matter.
It might be worth pointing out, like Bernie Sanders' campaign for, presidency, not presidency, but like whatever, to be the candidate for presidency or whatever, where his entire thing constantly came down to one single point, right? He was just constantly saying, we're going to make the 1% pay their fair share. And he almost did not talk about any other topic except that one topic, right? And like, that's how you know that what he's talking about, well, I don't know because he didn't become the president, but how I assume that he is genuine in his goals and interests, right?
Oh, for sure. And because he's still politically active, and if you look at what bills he puts forward and what he votes on and what he says in Congress, it's still in line with that concept, for sure. And so I think, because I was talking with Jane, I'm still trying to develop this opinion I have about how to help autistic people, but I think if the autistic person is discussing something, right, I think we can assume that their interest in it is the autistic person's interest in it is going to mean that they're studying it, they're thinking about it, they're actually engaging with the material, right? We take that for granted, which I think is safe too. If the person with is just started out incoherent and is increasingly becoming even more incoherent, that might be the simplest kind of like, this happens, just do this. Like, that's just a time to end that discussion, because I fail to see any time that's ever changed, where all of a sudden in the middle of a discussion they're like, oh, wait a second, I just realized that we just spent 4 hours talking about something. I don't know anything about it. I thought I did. I'm gonna go and read about it now. I've had that happen a couple times in my life, but that's like really rare, and that like usually depends on a lot of previous real interactions before that. I don't know if they've ever had that with a stranger where it's like,
I don't think I've had a single interaction where someone is coming across incoherent to me and I ask them some follow-up questions and their responses don't immediately give me some greater degree of coherency. There's never been an instance where if that didn't immediately show up, it would show up at any point in the future. So now with this like ghost ship model Jane has, right? I could just say, after this one exchange of initial incoherence, check in on why it's going incoherent, and then additional incoherence. I could just say, ghost ship, this isn't a person I should be talking
And
to.
the objective of the ghost ship is what's important there. The ghost ship wants to get you off the island.
Yeah.
Right? So they and I think the ghost ship wants to get you off of the island because of this, like the ghost ship works because it's already tells you about a tragic story without having to say very much. Like, ghosts want things that are phantoms of their past. Ghosts want things that aren't real. And they want to pull the living into their deadness. And that's what you're like, oh, you want to pull me into something that's a sad story for you, and I'm even like buffering up how sad and tragic that is, but that, like, there's a lot of ghost ships, for one, and for two, what they actually want is for me to do something impossible, which is to make them alive.
Yeah. And what they actually need is a professional.
Yeah, correct.
Right, because what they actually are is the product of our entirely broken society that is coming out of, the feminist problem, right? So the solution to helping the ghost ship is to do feminism, and you can't do feminism with the ghost ship, right? They don't have
what feminism feminism exists because ghost ships are produced by this ideology. I probably can't undo what happened to that person, but we cannot have ghost ships in the future if that's what it is. Maybe, I don't know. The tragedy of the ghost ship is the tragedy of the ghost ship. So the point is like that and if they ever break their own curse and become a real ship and can go to an island and build their own stuff, then they'll do that. So there's also not a problem of me making a false call about a ghost ship, because a ghost ship is such a problem that I need to just say it so that I can get back to the island. And if it's somebody who's in their own ship, then they'll get to their island and it's not an issue.
Right, like patriarchy creates the issue, misogyny creates patriarchy, which creates the issue of misassignment of resources at a scale that is like astronomical.
Yeah.
Right? So like even if you wanted to be the person to help ghost ships, you can't assign enough resources to do that while resources are being assigned according to the whims of patriarchy.
Yeah. And Jamie had some really good things that I think is really important. They said, is that because different people are at different education levels? They can be of each topic at different times, so you might be ready. They're trying to accommodate for social reasons. Yeah, absolutely. And base level, just being in the conversation, even if they're not able to be coherent, it is fulfilling social needs. And they're actually going nowhere. Which and then the one that I really like is says that they might not be able to see what you are building, concept, non-tangible, because they're ghost ships. They see their own tragedy. They see their own curse and whatever else. I don't know what the perspective of a ghost on a ghost ship is, because I'm not, and I just know, like, I don't. And maybe a ghost captain and their ghost crew can get out of their curse, but I don't know. But that's yeah.
Right, and so I mean, Jamie mentioned education levels, and so there's different types of skills that people can be lacking that cause these things, right? And so it can be regulatory skills, interpersonal skills, like all kinds of different skills that people don't develop for all kinds of different reasons, right?
Yeah. And they might not, exactly, and it's not to say that can't change for that individual. It's also not to say that it can change for that individual. You'd have to spend a lot of time with that individual, but if you want to do that, then you got to become a therapist or something, because outside of a professional setting, if you're a close friend or something like that, you might be able to help them.
It's understood. It's understood in the
Well,
therapeutic setting that the therapist does the person in the therapeutic setting doesn't then start making comments about the therapist and their island. They know that the therapist is a ghost ship, doctor or whatever, coming in trying to see what they can do for them.
So to use the analogy, it is unsafe and unuseful as a person being haunted by the ghost ship to attempt to help the ghost ship.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Like
yes.
Specifically.
Right. Exactly.
If this is your relationship there, then you can't be the one to help them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially if there's like, if that's just not outside, if that's outside your skill set, you know what I mean? Because like, I feel comfortable with some people on some topics, depending on and getting them to change their view on something. That's fine, but there are times when I notice, okay, I can give them fact 1, 2, and 3, but 4, 5, and 6 is going to set them over the edge. But once they establish 1, 2, and 3, then I can, like, once they have reached 1, 2, and 3, now I can give them 4, 5, 6. So I can't give it all to them, which I have a habit of doing. But again, depending on the thing, depending on who they are, and if all that sounds too complex, then don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, your job is not to, like, necessarily stop everything you're doing and help every single person that comes across you, especially if you don't want that to be your job.
No, and if it is your job, you need to have boundaries that are like way beyond typical boundaries, right? So yeah, so if and that's what I was saying, Jamie. If somebody works at different efficiency or speed, then they're not a ghost ship; they're just a ship, and that's fine. And so we don't this behavior is so clear because it lacks substance. So if the person can't see what I'm working on the island and then projects onto me, that's an additional layer. Okay, so even if somebody has an intellectual problem, there's a different mental problem going on, even if they have some sort of processing speed, other issues. The projection is something else entirely, and that's what we're talking about. That's the problem. There may be conditions that set somebody up for that to be the case in certain dynamics and not others, and whatever. So there may be like pre-existing other factors that are more or less neutral, right? But outside of that, we're talking about the ghost ship projects onto you, and it's about them. It's about the ghost ship and the ghost ship needing therapy.
If they're trying to get you to stop building your thing, that means they're trying to stop you to building your thing.
And you can be like,
stop building your thing.
What's the argument for not building my thing? And it's like, well, you know, there's no real argument. You're like, okay, well then this is about something else. Because it's fair to make sure you're not building trash.
Often their argument is your thing is hurting me,
yeah.
And then you say, how? And there's no way for that to be happening.
Yeah.
Right.
How dare you ask me that?
Right. Yeah. And my argument is this is how hurting really works. Is that's what I go back to this thing of the ability to model, ability to be pro-social, and commitment to anti-torture, anti-abuse, like non-torture, non-abuse, not lying, which is the abuse actually emerges from the insufficiency in the ability to model, coupled with insufficient prosociality. Because prosociality means we want to make sure people have accurate information that they can use. And intellectual ability, as we're describing it in modeling, means you're able to see what information is likely to be true. So if those things are not true about this person, even if they say they are, because they may be saying that they are because they once again want to be afforded some position where they're protected because they're able to do pro-social. They're being protected. Do you see what I'm saying here? So people will be protected for being pro-social and having accurate information that they share pro-socially. So somebody's still trying to occupy that realm for the protection, for invulnerability. So that's the problem.
Yep.
Right, and I don't judge anybody. Just with Jamie's thing, I'm not judging anybody when I'm making my model. I'm just making models, and that's how you know if somebody's like not, a piece of shit doing shit. Go ahead.
It kind of makes me think like it's kind of like a sheep in wolf's clothing who the shepherd to hit the real sheep. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of, but
yeah.
Also, Jane, is it just me, or is this room's fucking scorching hot?
It is. Is the window closed again? Yeah. Yeah, and then Jamie was saying, and this is definitely like modeled in what I was saying too. Sometimes your thing might be threatening their power hierarchy position, which I'm arguing that I think actual power hierarchy, we do have to give people positions of like being leaders or helping to disseminate what the instructions of what the fuck we're doing are, but that we decide on taking that risk based on pro-sociality and complex ability to do modeling, and that they would lose that position because they don't have those things. So the threatening is how they've maintained those two things. And why does it matter? Like I remember what I want to say. Oh, you're hurting me, right? Like you're hurting me. How can me being pro-social, which I can demonstrate, and rational, which I can demonstrate and I'm willing to defend, how can that cause somebody to be hurt if I'm giving them accurate information? At a certain point, you have to locomote yourself. And if I'm giving you accurate information and I'm doing it in a pro-social way, then that's going to minimize hurt more than anything else. We'll still get hurt. Humans will hurt each other by accident because it's confusing to share information. It's confusing. We hurt ourselves, God damn it. Like it's confusing to be in agreement with reality. It's not easy.
Can I add something onto that?
Yeah. Yes.
There's the hurt thing, and then there's also, to support's point about the quote debate bros, angry. So really, it's kind of like what you're saying is making me dysregulated.
Right.
And not only are you making me, I'm going to now use this dysregulation or the lie of the dysregulation, one of the two, to force you to change your behavior
Right.
and to change your words.
Which they
your
have to do because they are not in that position for any reason except for the fact that they're willing to eventually threaten and abuse, that they're eventually going to do that because they don't actually hold the first two criteria. They failed at that criteria. So it's predictable that they'll have to do that because that's why they're there in the first place.
Why are you in charge? Because I'm in charge.
Right.
Why do you get to decide what's right and what's wrong? Because I'm the one who decides that. Duh.
Right, because and they'll say at first they'll say because I'm pro-social, because I'm morally and intellectually superior, and then you're like, okay, well prove it, and then they'll be like, well, I'll just kill you instead, or I'll just hurt you instead, or I'll just silence you instead. No, I don't have to prove that. But then you're like, but abusive people in that way can't be pro-social, and abusive people wouldn't give me false information about their own levels of moral and intellectual functioning, or what I would say pro-social and modeling ability. That doesn't make sense. So they fail. Their own simple Venn diagram style of like categorization fails. And so in order to hide the failure, which is what they've done the entire time, I would argue, they're going to go back to threats. And then they're a ghost ship, and now you're in triangulation. And they're going to switch tactics because all of this is and this is where we talk about like getting to like narcissistic injury. So you can describe that as like a process of them responding to the narcissistic injury, that they are not morally and intellectually superior, which I think ultimately is just an attempt to have unlimited safety, and invulnerability is what some feminists would situate that as. Like which is a denial of death. Like you can get to the whole thing of like it sucks that we get injured and die. So now they're doing this shit instead of us getting to do other stuff.
I was wondering if you could define denilation and patrodenialation.
Yeah. So denilation and patrodenialation I came up with so that we don't have to say people throw tantrums. Like adults are not throwing tantrums. We do not treat these like our sons and we're their mommy. Absolutely not. What happens is a man wants something from usually a woman or girl, but not necessarily. It could be from anybody, but they'll really go to town on girls and women is sort of the argument because of how the structure all is put together. Like that's what this behavior is produced by the structure. But anyone could do denilation, right? But that our structure creates patrodenialation, and denilation is the response to do abuse when what they want from a girl or woman, the woman says no. So when the ghost ship wants the girl or woman, and it isn't always a girl or woman, it could still be patrodenialation. It could be directed towards somebody that isn't a girl or woman, right? It could be addressed to any kind of person, potentially, but it's being addressed by usually a man. You could be a woman that's indoctrinated into patrodenialation too, but I'm going to just say, broadly speaking, that one is to describe the thing that's happening from men towards people they see as the person that was supposed to do what they want. That's what it is. So if you were a person that man or boy says is supposed to do what they want and you don't, now they start to try to punish you. And their behaviors and attempts to punish are your responsibility to fix or make go away or change or minimize. Now they're controlling you, and now you're trying to regulate their affect, or you're trying to regulate the level of threat, or you're centering them. So whatever you were doing, because they decided you were supposed to do something else that they wanted and you didn't, now they're doing this behavior that has been described occasionally by feminists as like a tantrum. Occasionally, one person, which I don't like their modeling, they might call this aggrieved entitlement. I take issues with it, which is why I switched to this, because I want to focus on the behavior itself. And the behavior is this rapid switching of tactics of, I need you to move because I want you to move. It's good for you to move, so you should move. You have to move because I'm in danger. Please help me. Or move right now, or I'll show you. I'll give you something to cry about. I'll give you something to move over. So it's all of this is just in the simple response of this person wanted to make you do something and you said no.
Oh, right. And that's actually a perfect example comes to mind of like how this doesn't have to be men or
Yeah.
to girls, right?
Yes.
Because it is very common in our parenting style, at least
Yeah.
in parts of the West, right? That this position of absolute authority and hierarchy over your children, so that like mothers will say to any type of children, go through this list of things
Right.
when the child doesn't do what they want.
Right. Right. Exactly. And patchwork annihilation, I like because it describes. I think this is the core mechanism that sustains patriarchy and the after effects of patrilineal um, entitlement and what's the word I'm looking for? Inheritance. Like you deserved that, you wanted it, you should get it just because you deserve it, and they don't. They have what you want, it should be yours. They don't give it to you, you do patronage annihilation. So patronage annihilation is the action that is done in response. And then we don't have to say like a tantrum, or we don't have to say like they did, you know, this emotionally abusive. Yeah, it's going to be emotionally abusive, but it's patronage annihilation, and I think it gives some distance and establishes a wider bucket for a lot of behaviors to fall into, which is why I think it's so hard to get out, because it's a large suite of behaviors that adapts with the times.
I also think it's useful as a term because the boundaries of an in-depth understanding of abuse don't exist generally. And so you can be teaching this term and giving examples of it without having to go into and teach the fundamentals of what things count as abuse.
Yeah.
And why they're abusive.
Yeah, and the idea is that like it's denial, like you denied something and now you will be annihilated. Because you denied me, I will annihilate you. Because that was your will. That was your desire. That desire is part of who you are. I will annihilate you so that desire itself is gone and there is only my desire.
I think the parenting thing is really useful because anyone who's engaged with any amount of culture has taken in a huge amount of how parents act in different circumstances, right? And so parents will literally say, I brought you into this world and I can take you out of it.
Terrifying.
When they're dealing with their child just not doing a thing they said, right? Like a child could be wanting a candy in a department store and an adult will yell this out loud and isn't immediately arrested, right? Like that's how fucked up and like how wide this patriarchal thing
which is why I want denialation and patronage annihilation to be words, so then the next time you see that happen, it's denialation. You can say that, and probably in our culture you can kind of use it interchangeably, but then we have a concept that can even predate and I guess post date. Like if we ever get past it, if we ever get out of it, we can still talk about denialation because it will still be there. It's just the mechanism that's employed exclusively to maintain the system, because it works with the physicality difference that I'm talking about in post-pubescent humans, where males can physically overwhelmingly destroy another human body, annihilate another human body with theirs with greater success than females. That's it. That's all. And why do we have that? It's not because men are better and they're physically superior, so maybe they are morally and intellectually superior. Like no, red pill, sit down. It's because if we didn't have this difference in our body fat ratio, the way that we evolved, we went down this tract, the fetus would eat our organs while inside of us. So we need to have a fat ratio. It wouldn't have worked. So this is just because we have this big giant brain that we have to have, developing, eating off of our body directly in sort of a very direct way that most species don't have. We have like what I would describe as and biologists have described as a parasitic embryonic sac. If you want to, amniotic sac. I never say that quite right. Amniotic sac. And if that's about what you want to go with, that's fine. But it has a direct line to the woman's blood. all of her nutrients can go right into it without her body cutting it off. All other mammals, besides like 3, 4, something like that, I think we're like the 4th or 5th that has this. That's not the case, and the body can basically cut it off. So since that's what we have going on, this is a good solution so that we can grow this very expensive brain without the woman's organs being eaten, because there's a fat deposit, because otherwise the muscle will eat the fat too readily, and then you wouldn't have enough fat to do this process successfully without the organs getting eaten. So we did all that to grow this fancy brain that then we don't use.
that we use to hurt each other.
Right. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Hey, we're making progress over here.
3 p.m. PST.
Awesome. Okay, I started
3
late.
p.m.
What do we think? Should we go a little bit, or are we good? We can cut it if this feels successful at this point too.
I would enjoy continuing a little bit longer, but
I think we could. No pressure to stay though, because we're past the time that we expected.
That was certainly a good like conceptual endpoint, but also we can just say that out loud right now as we have, and then continue anyway.
Yes, I think let's do that a bit. I started late due to reasons related to this that set up this to be as successful as it has been, which I'm really happy about. I'm really, really happy about. Like, this gives me great joy. And I'm not alone. I used to talk to myself. I mean, I still do. But, like, I used to only talk to myself. Okay, so in that case, we started 45 minutes late. Let's pick, since we're going to keep going, let's pick still a new definite end time so that we can use that method to help us regulate.
Sure. So 45 more minutes?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Okay.
Let's just see if it changes topics and the fact this is HCAT. I am actually doing HCAT things. I've been chopping vegetables and I put all my different dinner things on to cook.
Wonderful.
And, yeah, I'm making curry.
Oh, that's so nice.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Aw. And yay, Team Veggies. We're trying to get on Team Veggie harder over here, too.
Who's we?
You and me? Wait, what do you mean? You don't act like we've been eating vegetables. Okay.
Kyle, do you not eat enough vegetables? You're eating way too much like fruit and grains and processed crap.
I've been eating a lot of the bulgogi beefless beef from Trader Joe's. That was like a staple. So we're trying to increase like frozen. We've got like frozen peas, frozen broccoli, like actual physical vegetables. But I have a meal replacement thing that just has like 1 million vegetables and 1 million fruits. So that's nice,
fair.
but
You do have that over me right now. I love. Well, I was saying like I'll eat veggies all day long.
yeah. No, because there was a time when we were just eating freaking just like rice and potatoes or something, or tofu and potatoes. Like you need a little bit more than that.
The small amount that I looked into, like gut health, they talk about like you can do a heuristic of just the more different types of vegetables you eat in a week, the more likely your gut health is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Variety. But yeah, we are. I was semi joking because I'm a vegan, so it's like I need more vegetables than a vegan. But it is actually true that you can be quote unquote vegan, but eating Oreos and something else like yeah, but that's
they
not.
Call it being a junk food vegan. So.
Yeah. I want to get back to this thing I used to make all the time. I want to get the kitchenette set up better here, but lentils and rice, and then I'd add in I forgot exactly what it was, but it was like some kind of like high protein grain husk thing that I thought went well. And then I those big, I don't know if you have them up in Canada, but it's like this big plastic tub that's just like filled with greens already washed and everything like that, and I'd just throw it in the lentil soup I was making, and then bring it like cook it down to have more of it in there. And I feel like that was like really good for my health. So I want to get back to doing that more often.
I had a thing come up that made me in the chat that made me think I wanted to ask about this. So this time I came up with the topic like the night before, which might be sufficient. Did this feel better with like the topic premeditated more and a little bit in the Discord?
So today went extremely well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like just to start out saying that. And yeah, like you said a thing, like you said a couple things, and I picked one out that I found interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you and I can carry a conversation between us on any topic that we both find interesting, right?
Right.
And then of course Kyle was here and did a huge amount of carrying the conversation, which I want to acknowledge. Yeah, I think this certainly was a successful test case, so it seems like this is probably useful.
Great. Okay, well, we'll do it again for next week. I feel like I'll do it a little bit more in advance, but probably still the same day. So I'll still do it on Saturday, but I'll do it, or I really did it like Sunday, middle of the night, or beginning 1 a.m. or something. But I'll do it sometime Saturday morning, afternoon. Try to do it early enough that it's like more afternoon for everyone at the latest, and see how that one goes next week.
And you still want to do it where like if somebody else has an idea, like just post it on the thing.
Yeah.
Whenever they want.
Yeah, and I'll see if this works for like Ask a Feminist too. Like maybe because feminism will obviously come up like it did now. Maybe that sometimes we'll have things that come up that can be continued in Ask a Feminist. I don't know, but that I could see that potentially happening too. So yeah, using the Discord that way.
So I think as sort of semi-aside to the Ask a Feminist topic, you should absolutely put like a post doing, what's technically advertising, but just like talking about the fact that you do Ask a Feminist in Lauren's server.
Oh, I should. Yeah.
The amount of people come in from there will completely revitalize like the whole prospect of that
project. I didn't even think about that. Because, and it'll fix whatever the fuck just happened.
Yes, and the whole project basically suffers from a lack of good intentioned people coming in to engage with, right?
Yes, exactly.
And just in general, not having enough people to engage with at all, because you need people to ask questions.
Right.
You're going to be doing a question and answer.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, seems like it lines up perfectly.
I agree. That's brilliant. Let's see here. For now, I'm just gonna do this, I think.
I'll share what I did for House Cat then.
Yay.
Is got the majority of this second room swept up and wiped down with the cleaner. But now I moved my desk. So originally my computer desk was in the bedroom, and there's often times when Jane and I are both at our desks in separate rooms, so trying to talk to each other. So we're just like not yelling, but talking loud through the door. It's like, wait, why don't we just move the desk into the same room as Jane's desk, and then we can hang out there at the same time. And then I'm gonna move the couch into the bedroom to watch TV.
It also makes more sense for the movement area because this is gonna take up the right amount of space where the couch is like cutting way over.
Yeah, the desk is not as wide and doesn't take up as much space as the futon thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've been sleeping on because in human design, can I say my special interest right now, Jane?
Please do.
In human design, this guy in the 80s, he went to this island after he kind of abandoned everything and everyone, his family and everything like that. I think they patched things up after, but he had to go find himself, and then he's on this island in Spain, and then he heard a voice and it told him about this new thing he had to bring to the world. He did, but basically I like looked into it, and I liked a lot of the stuff they were saying, and then under their prescription, something that's called a projector, and they're like, oh, projectors, like you have to sleep in, like you should try sleeping in a separate bed from even your own spouse because you pick up on too much energy and you're not gonna get a night's sleep. And so sometimes I'll sleep in the bed, but I've been sleeping on this futon, and it's nothing even like negative against anybody, but I think I'm like, oh, that actually does work. Like I don't have as much like I don't feel as like
Also,
charged.
there's also science about like people's movement being a disturbance, and like we really probably shouldn't be sleeping in the same bed that often with anybody ever because we have waking like yeah, just like it's you don't get as well like there's studies on that also get into that. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Sleep quality
yeah.
studies.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
I think you might have forgotten, or certainly you left out that context. Which
Yep.
might have
I did.
not been obvious.
I did completely forget and not put that in, or fail to in some way.
Yeah,
Forget gives me too much credit.
I was sleeping on the futon in the other room, so basically by switching the futon bed into the bedroom bed, and it's in the same room, and then the desk is in a better spot, and it doesn't take up as much room as this couch. I still probably got a few hours of house cleanup we gotta do today.
It's a lot better though. This is kind of exciting. I've been doing the bathroom, my desk, doing like some better stopgap solutions.
Oh.
What?
Sorry.
Uh-oh. Oh, I'll worry about it later.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. No, here you go.
I got excited because I wanted to share about a discovery of witches.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Ooh.
If you got Netflix, go find A Discovery of Witches and watch it, and it's great.
Is that about the autistic girl in Europe somewhere?
I don't.
No,
it's not. So
it's
I'm
not.
thinking of a different thing that I could also recommend to people.
Ooh.
I remember it at the moment.
There's an autistic witch.
There's a show about a autistic girl who finds out about like a witch trial in her town, and then goes against the like board of mayors or whatever to get like a memorial done.
Oh wow! Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
Is it a true story or is it a fictional?
I don't think it's a true story. It's called A Kind of Start.
That sounds fun.
I'll post that.
Okay, I guess we got our next show now.
Kyle.
Yay! Yeah, good call.
We got another show to watch after this then.
Because
like we got Netflix to watch Bridgerton, and I was like, okay, we finished Bridgerton, at least where they're at. Do I cancel the Netflix because neither of us are really like big TV watchers? But gave it a shot. I watched all of Death Note when I was working in LA. I just go to the hotel, turn on my computer, play MapleStory, watch Death Note, go to sleep for like 2 weeks. But so I was like, well, let's try out this other show. I like anything related to witches, magic, and stuff, and so far it's really good.
If I call it what I've been calling it, Kyle, do I ruin it? So I there was like a preview of it, and then I looked into what it was, and it was sold as time traveling vampire witch love story, and I'm like, yes.
So what were we calling it? We were calling it. We're ending up so far. What are we at? We're at stupendous time traveling vampires from space, even though there's no space component.
Yeah. Well, we're saying like, what would be like the most like out there every genre thing? Like, what if you had like a superhero genre that was also time traveling vampires that were also from outer space?
I love it.
Oh, my brain is cooked. I just looked around and I was like, oh, I can't do anymore. Maybe I can though. Let's see. Let me see what I can do. Something.
I've done so much HCAT stuff this weekend, so I'm done.
Good.
You're
Excellent.
done?
like, is it literally all finished that could be? No, but I'm done.
Yeah, that's a yep.
Yep.
Support
I'm gonna
knows
hit
all
that
the
limit pretty
nonsense of this weekend.
I heard the piece of glass broke. Or
Yeah,
something.
including me having to clean up glass. Yes.
Oh, that's never good.
Yeah, because I'm stupid and dropped the. I was cleaning the fridge, and one of the things apparently is much more delicate than the others.
Oh
Because
no.
it shattered in my sink, which the good news is it shattered in the sink.
Right. True.
So
But
cleaning
it
up
shattered.
everywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a thing.
Mm.
So once that happened, I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of done now.
Yep.
Break time.
I did clean up the glass, I promise. But after that,
There
I
you
was
go.
done. I ate dinner
kidding.
like during this call because I was like, you know what? I'm done. I
Yeah.
can't do this.
That's perfect.
Yep. I do that sometimes during days.
I've been playing Far Cry
I'm-
for the last 45 minutes. I don't care anymore.
Good. Good. We support that. We care that you don't care anymore.
I just don't.
Sometimes you gotta hit that. You hit that limit, and you just gotta go do something fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I play video games too much. It is technically a too much, but oh well.
Oh well. Yeah, when I was in LA. I brought my whole computer with me because I played Maple Story. The last one I played Maple Story years ago, and we stopped. Me and my brothers kind of just stopped playing in like 2011 maybe. So I got back into it when I got this new computer. So I was like, what's it like? A lot different than what it was before, but they had these like a bunch of like leveling events. So every day after work, I was like, I gotta make it to the event, or else I'm not gonna get this experience. Because it plays so different than it did before. Like the leveling's a lot quicker, but I miss what I had before with like just the random socialization, interact with people, but whatever. Then kind of just judging off of, I don't know, like nobody talks anymore on it. It's just like a leveling kill boss game. I'm kind of like, man. We used to make friends on Maple Story. Like me and my brothers made friends with a guild that my brother joined randomly one day, and then we ended up playing Halo 3 with that group of people for like a year and a half straight back in the day. We would just play Halo 3 all the time and be on voice and make jokes and get to know each other, and it was really a lot of fun. And I don't know if Maple Story is like that anymore, so kind of sad, but it is what it is.
I mean, I met my best friend like I've known her now for 16 years on a random RPG on the internet when I was 11.
Right.
I mean,
that's fun.
Yeah.
Mind
Yeah.
you, I now know that was not smart, but oh well. I didn't know that at 11.
Right.
Right.
And it turned out okay. Like.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, the internet can be good for autistic people, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we complain about how people interact on Twitch, Jane and I met via Twitch, so it can't be 100% bad.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I never really, I tried to watch, I've watched a few streams before this on Twitch, but I was never, a regular user of Twitch.
I wasn't either, actually. I just started streaming myself. I was like, oh, because I didn't care what other people were doing on it. I just wanted to try to explore the ideas that I had. And then I tried to not conform, let me start that over. I tried to see if I could be adopted into the culture of it. No.
Nope.
Was not working.
Yeah, but as a tool, I like it. There's not really like an alternative. I mean, I'm streaming simultaneously to the YouTube, and maybe I can get enough TikTok people to simul stream on there in the not too 8 billionth year from now future. But yeah, for now it's like there's really nothing else to do it on, so that's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah, I don't use I don't know. TikTok is also a thing I have not used out of principle at this point.
Yep.
So I just haven't.
I barely do, and I don't like it.
Like, I don't really use social medias at all anymore.
I know there's some
I
good
use Discord.
engagement.
That's basically it.
I know there's some good engagement you can get in the comments, but the amount of horrible comments that you'll be exposed to, I think is just psychologically abusive. So I haven't had that experience because I'm not out there like that, but everybody that does have like will be exposed to like probably hundreds of abusive comments a week. So, can you hear me?
Yeah, I haven't really just socials
No?
in general.
No, I
Now,
can't.
yes.
Oh,
There
okay.
was a gap.
Yeah.
It wasn't very. There was a gap.
Oh yeah, I was just saying that like you can get exposed to like hundreds of horrible comments and on things that are like meaningful to you, and then you have to address it or don't address it, and then you have to play into this stupid game of like what to do with online bullies. I'm like, I don't know, TikTok, redesign your platform, dip. Yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna go all anger mode.
Yeah, so I moral and story, like social media in general, I don't use very much. My mom still gets upset that I don't respond to her Facebook messages because I just don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't look.
Yeah, she'll be like,